There we go. We're recording, by the way. So anybody that missed it, let your friends know that they can see it later.
Yep. All right, now, just as a friendly thing, I would love to be interrupted lots, but otherwise, please take a second and mute so that we don't have a bunch of feedback or clicks if that is something you haven't already done. All right, now, what I think you're seeing is my face little, my slide that says building your personal brand big, and you're hearing my voice and not a whole lot else. Could somebody confirm that for me just before I move on? Audio, video, quality, we're doing all right. Hey, Nick Kisanovics here. What's up, man? Okay, cool. So here we go. Hi, everybody. I am Tony Ferrar from the College of Engineering. Student success is my specialty, and I am absolutely thrilled to be here. So thanks in advance for having me. It turns out that what I'm going to talk about today is basically a direct response to questions that you and at this point now hundreds of students have asked me about what it really looks like to launch your dream career and make something amazing happen in your life. The internet might be chock full of how to write resumes and cover letters, and career services right here on campus loves to host resume workshops and things like that to get you done. The challenge is that there's so much out there on things like resumes and cover letters that we might start to think that there's nothing else that really matters. If you've got a good piece of paper, life is good, and you're going to be a shoo-in for your job. This is not a resume workshop. We are not going to talk about resumes hardly at all. Instead, what we're going to talk about is something a little bit more holistic, which is your personal brand. So I'm going to launch into that. It is my intention to show you 54 slides in less than 30 minutes, allowing at least 20 to 30 minutes for us to hang out and answer questions afterwards. So are you ready for the blitz? Righteous, here we go. All right, so here's the playlist. I'm going to introduce myself a little bit more detail. I'm going to talk about how we can replace resumes with personal brands, show you what to do to get started, bust every one of your objections in my favorite section of the talk called the yeah, but, and then close with 2 action-oriented steps that you can take today to make things happen for yourself. So let's do this. This is me. Hi, Tony. That's the last time I graduated. I walked out of this building behind me 3 times, 2008, 11, and 15, all at Virginia Tech. That's where I did my bachelor's, master's, and PhD. After that, I went to University of Florida for a year where I did research in the nuclear engineering program, combination of, believe it or not, storing spent nuclear fuel. We don't use the word nuclear waste, we use spent fuel. And medical research. We looked at cancer treatments and radiology and some things like that. After a year of that, I landed a job as a professor in residence at Temple University. Anybody know where Temple University is located? Most common, yeah, a lot of people think it's in Utah. A lot of people think it's a religious school. It's neither. It's in downtown Philadelphia, and it is a state school in Pennsylvania. So it's kind of the counterpart to Penn State and Pitt. But it's near Drexel, yeah, across the river. So worked there for 3 years, had a really wonderful experience. Always had the dream of moving west to be closer to one of our biggest hobbies. That's my wife and I, which is rock climbing. And if you didn't know it, there's a lot of that here. But we also wanted to come somewhere that had a school with a mission we could get on board with. And Temple, UNLV is just doing amazing things right here in our local community to change lives. And that's the business that I want to be in, which is why I'm here. In addition to being a professor here at UNLV, I've just finished my first year, so starting my second right now. I also spend a lot of my spare time teaching students and early career professionals how to spend more time doing what they love, launching their dream careers, and building a prosperous future that they can use to be wildly successful and wildly generous. So I'll have to tell you more about the different things I do there, but I'm a nerd about things like time management and personal finance and career development. So I thought I might tell you a little bit more about the more interesting side of me, which is that I hit rock bottom in my life 3 different times before coming here. The first was when I had a conversation with my girlfriend, who is now my wife, that essentially summed up to this: either you need to change the hours that you're working, or your relationship status needs to change. Which is, she's not the ultimatum type, but I knew that this was where we were headed. And really what it came down to is the fact that in grad school, I was pulling a lot of all-nighters. I was working 7 days a week. I was basically living on cigarettes and Red Bull and whatever crap you can buy off the counter at a gas station. Um, and I suddenly realized this is no way to live and started working on time management, which is definitely not one of our students' favorite words. But the truth is, I managed to kind of transform that aspect of my life and found myself being more productive while being home for dinner, not working weekends anymore. In fact, we took 26 weekend rock climbing trips the first year that I got myself back in gear. And strangely enough, I got more done. The next big thing that happened in my life was I graduated for the last time and I got a bill, and it wasn't the small one. I had $11,000 in maxed out credit cards. I had a bunch of student loans, in fact, maxed out federal plus a private. I brought a brand new car on my grad student salary, like a smart person would. So I had a car payment. um, and we woke up one day thinking, wow, this is pretty crazy. We have a monthly minimum payment of $1,400 a month. And that's a lot of past to pay for with your future. So we decided to get pretty serious about it, dialed down the lifestyle, worked very hard, and we paid off $95,000 in debt in about 2.5 years. And we did that while moving across the country twice, having a baby that required expensive fertility treatments. And we did this all while our base household income was around $60,000 a year. So hopefully that gives you a little hope. Lastly, I found myself applying after my postdoc from Florida for real jobs, and I threw out 100 job applications. And I think you can guess I'm qualified, right? PhD, 3 degrees, got good grades, had all the boxes checked, had all the research and the responsibilities and all this kind of stuff. Everything you could possibly do to look good on paper, I had done. I applied to 100 jobs online and I got 0 phone calls for an interview. Not a single one. And that was a pretty depressing couple of weeks for me until I started to ask myself, what was really broken here? Is it me? Am I really that unhireable after everything that I've done? Or maybe there's a process that's broken. And the truth is, I think that's what it is. And the reason that I believe that so strongly now is that I changed and I started doing what I'm about to show you, and I applied to 25 more jobs. So I went from 100 job applications and 0 phone calls to 25 more applications, and I got 26 phone calls. I applied to 25 jobs. Somebody actually called their buddy and said, "Hey, you really got to talk to this guy." Since then, basically every job since graduating undergrad that I've had was created for me. Since 2008, I've held 7 positions, some of which I held simultaneously, and not a single one of them was from a job that was posted on the internet. Every single one of these jobs was created specifically for me to match what it is that I do that brings value. And that includes the one right here at UNLV, by the way. And so you might find that interesting because there are more opportunities for custom than ever before. Anyways, if you'd like to learn a little bit more about that story, just wanted to tell you about it in case this is a thing of interest to you. Me and my buddy started a podcast at a website called the Intentional Academy, which we created. And if you go there /1, it's my life story in 45 minutes worth of detail instead of 4 minutes. So you can go check that out if you like. Pause there. Any questions, thoughts? Are we awake? Can you hear my voice? I'm going to take a drink of water. Cool. So that's as much of me as you're going to get. The rest of it's about you. So not trying to cast aspersions on anybody who really loves resumes and things like that, because they are still a critical aspect. But the next thing we're going to talk about is why resumes are a real bummer. And the answer is really simple, actually. You, human being who's looking at me through their computer monitor right now, are so much more than a number, your GPA, and a few bullet points on a sheet of paper. We are all unique individual human beings that have unique and individual stories. And the shame of it is that we don't capture anywhere close to the real story when we look at something like a GPA or a list of bullet points on a resume. Why is that? Well, first off, GPA has no correlation whatsoever to your ability to add value at work. I don't know if you ever thought about this, but maybe you're a hustling, hardworking person who also had to commute and work just to eat while you were a student. Or maybe you were even contributing to your family's income or helping out with a family owned business. Or I had a student who halfway through the semester said, "Hey, I'm going to need a little bit of an extension. My ex just dropped off our 2 kids on my doorstep and disappeared." These things affect GPAs. Do you think they really affect somebody? I would rather have that person with a 2.5 come to work for me, knowing what they went through and the things that they'd overcome and the challenges they'd engaged with. And yet we can't capture that in a single number. The problem that we really run into is this: when it's easy to apply online, people do. How many jobs have you applied to a job online before? Let me see the yeses and nos there. Yes, 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 right. Right. Have you ever applied to a job online when you weren't looking for a job? Right? Why? Well, because it's easy. Once you fill out LinkedIn once, you press the automatic apply button. And you know what? Everybody's doing it. In fact, I read one study that said at name brand institutions, a typical entry level job gets 10,000 applications. In fact, what this online application business has done is it's created what the business folks call a buyer's market. Right? A buyer's market was where the supply is huge compared to the demand. And so I have my pick. I get to decide what I want. And if you don't want to take the job for this low entry salary, then there's somebody in line behind you who will. And it makes it really hard because these are now global job searches. And so the question comes, are you the best out of 10,000 people? And the funny thing is, I don't think anyone is, right? Because again, we all know that 4.0 student who can't operate outside of a well-defined canned situation from class. They've just figured out how to do class. And we also all know a 2.5 student who's super creative. They can always seem to make something out of nothing. They hustle, they grind, they always deliver. And we all know, because we've been to a resume workshop or two in our day, that resumes are really just our ability to copy and paste, right? That's what they're a measure of these days, because we're all given the same advice. Take all the words from the job posting company's About Us page and the job ad itself. Make sure that those appear in your resume, because those are the keywords that the computer's searching for as it filters out which of these 10,000 applicants are going to get an interview. Is it more complicated than that in real life? Yeah, but not much. And so what's frustrating is that searching for an internship and a career, it's nice to have the access to the internet and all these online applications and things because there's so many more opportunities than there used to be. You know, networking used to involve spending money and going to a conference. The only way that you could build relationships and connect with these organizations was to go there, right? Go to a conference, visit them. And now we're at the point where you can kind of blow the lid off your career while you're watching TV just by responding to a tweet. And that's what I want to talk about a lot today is how do we get past just trying to look good on paper and instead do something that's a little bit more holistic? Because I think there's a secret second half of this, which is that we are at a time where, excuse me, you ever lose your train of thought right in front of 50 people? Well, it probably wasn't important anyway. We're at a time where we are capable of experiencing custom and doing custom. And it's been working really well for me and the people that I've been coaching through what we're talking about here. So the two things that I want you to walk away from this is one, replace the resume with a brand. And two, get out of the line. Skip the machine. Skip trying to trick a computer into pulling your resume because you're more than that. So here's what personal branding is in story form. Okay. Imagine that you are driving across the country and you pull into some town that you've never heard of and you're hungry. And as you pull into town, you see two hamburger joints, Al's Bar and Grill and McDonald's. Which one do you go to? I'm appreciative of the adventuresome folks. Nice. Statistically, you are hundreds, maybe even thousands of times more likely to pick McDonald's because of what Sabrina just said. It's familiar. Does McDonald's make a better hamburger? Who knows? But we know they make the same one in a million locations, right? Anywhere in the world, a McDonald's hamburger tastes the way it tastes. McDonald's restaurants are relatively clean. For all we know, Al's just failed its health inspection and is filled with rodents, right? We know McDonald's is going to be open. Al's might be closed. These are all challenges that we have to deal with. And so for a very long time, McDonald's got to cash in on their brand because that reputation was enough that we would pick them over Al's, regardless of whether or not it was better, until Yelp changed everything. Because now you pull into town and you see Al's and McDonald's, you can Yelp and discover whether or not Al's is clean, if they're open. You can see pictures of the food. And you can literally now make a decision because we have the ability to share this information with each other, right? I don't think there's a Yelp yet for job applications, although the things like LinkedIn and whatnot might be on their way, right? But we're not there yet. Branding solves a problem, which is how do you choose when you don't get an answer until you buy it and take a bite, right? You have to commit to a decision. You have to buy Al's Burger, take a bite of it, and then discover if it's any good, right? Employers are dealing with the same problem the other way around. They interview a bunch of people who have been trained to answer their questions well, and then we have to figure out, based on those answers, who we're going to hire. And basically, the answer is you're getting hired on faith in your ability to answer a couple of questions in an interview, and they're hoping that they guessed well. And so what we want to do is give people a little bit more peace of mind by building what I call a personal brand, which is this idea of what do people really think of you? What do they say when you're not in the room? So hopefully at this point, I have convinced you that there's more to your career than a resume. The thing is, you got to join the conversation if you're going to get there. So let's talk about how to get started. There are two key ingredients to your personal brand. The first is that we want to form genuine connections with genuine human beings. We're going to talk about how to do that here next, and then we'll talk about the second aspect, which are the assets, and I'll wrap this all up. So believe it or not, we're cruising right through. We're going to make it, folks. Doing okay? Yippee! All right, here we go. Step one, build your social media online presence. I don't know if you've noticed this, but social media gives you the opportunity to talk to anybody in the world, whether they're the president of the United States, a famous athlete, or the CEO of a company. I have tweeted and gotten responded to by many, many famous people. Imagine the opportunity that comes with that, the fact that you can leverage that and be a part of a conversation, even right now as a student. So getting really practical here, dealing with handles is becoming what I would consider to be a 21st century sustainability issue. There's only so many of them out there. There's only so many names. What do you do? It can be pretty hard to create a handle, right? What's your handle? My own is the Tony Ferrar at the. Oops, hang on here. I can type at the Tony Ferrar. That's on every platform. I got lucky. The reason I had to put the word "the" on there was because I was feeling presidential. No, that's a joke. I discovered that somebody else had gone and gotten the handle Tony Ferrar, whose name, by the way, is not Tony Ferrar. So that's pretty awesome. What you want to do? What you want to do is you want to come up with a handle on any platform that you're going to use to build your brand that is easily remembered and specific to you, but not too niched down. So let me give some examples. Adding numbers to the end of them, not the best idea in the world because they're hard to remember, right? Tony Ferrar engineer, that'd be a pretty good one, right? Tony Ferrar the car guy, not so great because there's a good chance in my life that I'm going to change from working on cars to working on jet engines to working on undergraduate student success, right? That's my own story. And so if I had Tony the car guy as my handle 15 years ago, it would be pretty irrelevant to what I do now, right? So what you want to do is kind of zoom out a little bit and keep yourself adaptable there. And a question I get a lot at this point is, am I using my personal accounts for professional work? And the answer is sort of. There's some platforms that I never used personally, like Instagram and Twitter, that Basically, you're only going to find professional things there. Although I've started sharing an occasional photo of my kids and things. Other ones like Facebook, I've got a very personal and private Facebook account. So what I did instead was I created a Facebook page for myself. And we'll talk about that in a minute. That linking accounts is also really cool. The thing that you want to think about is, what are people finding when they look for you, right? Because that is what your brand actually is. And if they find nothing, much like not finding reviews on Yelp about a restaurant, they might choose to go somewhere else, right? So people who are afraid to post things on the internet, I feel like we've reached a point now where nothing posted is scarier than something posted, right? And so what I do, by the way, if you Google and scroll down far enough, you can find pictures of me from parties wearing hula skirts and acting like a real idiot. But in order to get there, you have to scroll through page after page after page of content that I'm extremely proud of. And so my own personal strategy is, instead of trying to sanitize and control something that you cannot control, because you always got that jerkwad friend that's going to keep tagging you in the picture no matter what you do, you just flood the internet with things you want them to find. Well, what do you put there? Well, first off, I like to have the same handle, tagline, bio on all of them. I like to have common graphics on all of my profiles, so my background and my banners are the same on all of them. But I do like to use different pictures on each platform to kind of capture the spirit of it. And I'll show you what I mean with that. And lastly, I do my best to point at all my accounts. Why do I do it this way? Well, you want somebody, if they find you on one place and then they find you on another one, to know that it's the same you, right? And so when you Google me and you go to my Instagram page, you're going to find the same picture of me, or the same banner image as you do on my YouTube channel. And the result of that is that you feel confident that you found the same Tony, right? Tagline is the one I can give you the most practical advice on. So let's do it real quick. This is a thing that's required for most accounts these days, like that little statement. In fact, Marion was nice enough to point mine out: living and living on purpose. Professor, husband, dad, tired of seeing students stressed, trying to do something about it, right? Linktree lets you put all your links on one page, says Ginger Marie Wilkins. Thank you. That's an awesome resource I actually didn't know about. I've got my own website that I do a similar thing on. I'll show you that in a minute. But yeah, you want to be able to put your link somewhere and then send people to find you, right? So what's my tagline? Let's dissect this for a minute. What's a terrible tagline? Something like, a dedicated and hardworking individual focused on delivering quality results. The reason that things like that are so bad is, one, we know you used a thesaurus, and two, there's nothing specific. What industry is this? Are you excellent at delivering pizzas, changing oil, engineering, cooking? It's too vague. It's too broad, right? So the structure that I found that works really well for people, because I'm into like Mad Libs where you just fill in the blanks, is what you're seeing on your screen now. Pick an industry issue, list some roles that are very important to you in your life that relate to what you're doing, and then give yourself a project statement or a mission statement or whatever you want to call it. So for me, one of the things that I've kind of taken an issue with in the industry of education is that a lot of people find themselves kind of going with the flow, drifting along, doing what they were told, rather than carving their own path. So living and learning on purpose is kind of my attack at that. The three most important things I identify as are a professor, a husband, and a dad. Those are three things I'm trying to do well that actually inform what I do professionally. And so my problem statement in a nutshell is what you're seeing there. I'm tired of seeing students being so stressed. I think school should be fun. I think building a career should be a joy, not a chore. And so I'm trying to do something about it. A student that I worked with came up with one that was similar. Design with sustainable materials. That's their issue. They wanted to replace current manufacturing technique with sustainable materials. Three things that they identify as is an engineer, an advocate, and a hiker. And their mission is to slow the growth of landfills, one product at a time. You ever hear that story about the kid walking on the beach and there's all the starfish that are walked up and they're drying out? There's millions of them. And this kid picks up one starfish and tosses it back into the ocean, and walks along, picks up another one and tosses it back into the ocean. And some crotchety fellow comes walking along and says, what's the point? You're never going to make a difference. There's millions of them. And the kid picks up the starfish and says, well, it's going to make a difference to this one. Tosses it in the ocean. one product at a time. So here's the beauty. Once you have that, you already have the outline for a 5-paragraph essay that I would call your bio. So here's that same tagline, and now you get to write 5 paragraphs. One about why it is that you have experience and interest in designing with sustainable materials, a follow-up for each of the 3 roles. Talk about your experience as an engineer, maybe a story of something you've advocated for, why it is that your hiking passion informs your interest in um, improving the quality of our planet, and then maybe describing some products that you currently find upsetting because they end up in landfills. The point here is that now you've got a really easy way to write a bio and a really easy way to write a tagline, and then follow that up with a really easy way to write a bio. What questions do we have? Do you feel like this is something you could accomplish? What's an issue that has you going right now that relates to your chosen career path? You ever get stuck with that interview question? So tell me what you love so much about engineering, and the only answer you have is, oh, I love everything I can possibly pick. I'm gonna let you chew. Rapid education. I want people to accept robotics and not be afraid of growth of robotics. That's a really cool one, right? Poverty, right? What's an engineer to do about poverty? A lot. More convenient living. Public versus private sector. Great question. This works great. I'm a state employee, by the way. Right? Optimizing people's living expenses so that they can live a more full life with what they do. Amazing, right? This is what you want to go to work for, right? Let's get you that job. By the way, if you haven't noticed, what happens when you represent yourself authentically is that you close many, many doors. But the ones that remain open are ones that you're going to flourish at. I'd rather find that out before I go to work there than after. And so a lot of people did say no to me, right? Increasing quality of life, not bad, right? These are amazing missions. I can't wait to read your expanded version of this, right? When it comes to images, I try to, yes, go where you're celebrated, right? If it's a battle, then you're not aligned, right? Well, who wants to live that way? Who wants to wear a mask 40 hours a week? Oof, that felt a little too close to reality right now. Who wants to wear a mask that changes their identity 40 hours a week? I've chosen a banner. The biggest advice I can give you here is try to use the same one everywhere. I've used this one because I think it evokes images of the people I'm trying to reach, going out and enjoying their lives. I want you to go have some fun while you're a college student. And so this is a picture of me in a place that I think is fun. If you're going to throw text on there, the advice I have is put it near the middle, because places like Facebook and YouTube, they change where they crop stuff all the darn time, but they always focus on the middle. So put your banner image with any words that you're going to overlay on the middle, and that way when it gets cropped, it still looks good. Profile pictures, I try to capture the spirit of the different mediums, and so things like Google and YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, I've chosen to use more of a professional headshot. This doesn't have to be expensive. This was my friend with a smartphone out front of a Bertucci's Italian restaurant, in case you're wondering. This is my Instagram picture, I think still. I might have changed it, I can't remember. I started taking pictures in front of the great thing that goes between the 2 engineering buildings, so you might see some updates. And then me making a goofy face on Twitter, because if you're going to take me seriously on Twitter, you don't understand what I'm doing there. It's a combination of inspiration and sarcasm, right? Which brings me to the point that I'm on all of these platforms, and I suggest that you do the same. The important thing to remember is that you're going to approach each one of them a little differently. So let's pretend that you just took all my advice and you just went and set up all of these different profiles. Now what? Well, now's the important part. Go search for people, not organizations. This is the best advice I can give you. GV is social media. What's GV? Google Voice. Oh, I use that to give out my phone number. In fact, I'll give you my phone number, but it's my Google Voice number, and now I have control over privacy. So yeah, I think it is social media. I think that you're going to see more and more people who are tired of getting emails, and marketers are going to start asking for your phone number to send you text messages instead. Check that out. In the meanwhile, the biggest piece of advice I can give you is to search for people, not organizations. We've all heard of Ford and Rolls-Royce and GE and Boeing and insert other large company here, Cirque du Soleil, but are those the only places that engineering's happening? Probably not. I'd love to tell you a funny story real quick. I went through an extra certificate program called Preparing the Future Professor. And one of the classes that I took, a graduate level full 3 credit semester long course, was about how to get a job as a professor. Would you believe that I didn't know the job title I currently hold existed after an entire semester of taking that class? I found out about this job title because I started trying to connect to other engineering professors who were passionate about teaching. And I kept seeing this job title, professor in residence, professor in residence, professor in residence. And it turns out it's like the ideal job for me. And it's a thing I'd never even heard of. And that's after taking a class in what kind of jobs exist. And here you are, probably not getting a similar course. Right. And so when you focus on connecting with people, you get to see their job titles. And there's only one thing you have to do to judge whether or not you're doing a good job at this. When you open whatever platform, LinkedIn, for example, are you interested in what you're seeing on your news feed? Because if not, you aren't training it well and you're not connecting to the type of people that you want to go to work for. So here's a couple of quick hacks for you on what you could do about that. Number one, for engineers in particular, go connect with government contractors. We've all heard the name brands and mistaken them for prestige, right? If I can tell my family I work for Cirque, well, they know I made it, right? Because I could sit around Thanksgiving and everybody knows that one. Or if I work for Boeing or Lockheed Martin or insert other famous thing here. You might not know this. The first thing that most of these companies that work for the government do is they turn around and hire out most of that work to a bunch of small companies you've never heard of. ABC Incorporated, Agilent X, And what do? Well, they make the ejection seats for the F-35. There's 15 people in an office building in a lab. The engineers wear their jeans to work and they build half the time and they draw stuff in CAD half the time. It's a pretty fun job. Is it for everybody? No. Are the big organizations for some of you? Absolutely. But I don't want you to get stuck into thinking that it's the only place to get an opportunity. If you don't get an internship from Tesla, your future in electric vehicles is far from over. Okay? There are lots of people working on this. And one of the wisest things you could do is go find these hidden organizations where you might be the only one applying. Previous slide, the only thing that you really need to be concerned with when it comes to your social media from a professional standpoint is whether or not your news feed has you interested. If you can't wait to start interacting with the content that's scrolling past, you're doing a good job. Otherwise, you need to work on your approach. Hack number 2, use the follow instead of connect on LinkedIn. I don't know if you know this, but when you hit the connect button, they have to approve it. When you hit the follow button, which is buried, by the way, under more, follow, they don't have to approve it. And anything that they post that's public shows up on your newsfeed, gives you an opportunity to interact. So what do? I search for people. I filter by locations that are interesting to me, and then I look at their organizations. I have never heard of Zone Engineering Limited. Have you? I wonder how many jobs they have open right now. And so you find the people that work in locations you want to be, and then maybe you click on Zone Engineering and find other people doing this. How many hours do I spend? I try to give this 20 minutes a day. I won't tell you where I'm sitting for most of those. But when you follow people, you get a chance to see if they're posting publicly. And if they're posting publicly, something interesting is going on. Because why would a professional who has a job post about their job online? Well, people have 3 basic needs. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be understood. And so they're asking you to do that every time they share something on the internet. So do it. See them, find them, follow them, like their posts to let them know that they have been heard, drop a comment or a share to let them know that they've been understood. And all of a sudden, what happens is you find yourself in a conversational with leading industry professionals about the topic that you're interested in. And then one day you start coming to mind every time the topic comes up. Maybe your weird thing is solar panels in cloudy cities. And suddenly some engineer decides they want to put solar panels in Seattle, and you're the name that comes to mind because you've been talking about that darn thing for years. So I said this already now, so I don't have to keep going, but you can't do it in a sprint. My recommendation is give it a few minutes daily. And when I say a few, I mean a few. You don't need to bury your face in this. The thing you can't do, though, is plant a tree, yesterday, right? The best you can do is pick it up and go now. And if you wait until the week before the career fair and think you're going to form meaningful relationships, you're mistaken. Right? Now you're just asking for favors with no basis whatsoever. My goal is 5 new connections every day. Try to find 5 people I haven't heard of or 5 organizations I haven't heard of. And as I look at them, I look for 2 things. One, projects. What are people posting about that you could talk about or maybe even solve? This is like giving yourself an internship. There's no reason. I saw a bunch of CS people, by the way. There's no reason you can't be writing code every day and sharing it with the world. No reason, right? Do I recommend any methods for managing notifications? Yes. If it goes ding, I have it turned off. I do not want to be interrupted. My life is way too complicated to be able to handle somebody pinging me right now. Totally mute my notifications. The only way I know that there's anything new is when I choose to open that app and see what has happened. And usually I'm thrilled to discover that there's 15 notifications in LinkedIn and 47 notifications in LinkedIn and whatever else everywhere else. And I'll pick 14, I'll pick a few and I'll respond to them. The other thing I always look for is opportunities to connect people and resources. So if I know about a cool time management article and somebody posts that they're stressed, I drop the link as a comment and say, this helped me, maybe it'll help you. And now all of a sudden you start being seen as a well-rounded individual who is not only intentional about their career, but also in their approach to professional development. How are we doing, folks? We're coming in for a landing, and I'll hang out as long as you want to answer questions, okay? Let's talk about assets for a minute. So step 1, connect with folks, okay? Step 2, produce new content. I don't know if you've realized this, but there's 2 aspects to your professional personality. The first is what I call technical skills. These are the things that are required to do a specific job, okay? So technical skills for engineers might be things like drawing in SolidWorks or writing code in MATLAB to make a graph, right? Those are technical skills. And you may have noticed, but we spend most of our efforts here in engineering school on training you in those. Why? Well, because we hired a bunch of niche specific technical experts to teach you. The second half of it, though, the part that Marion would love to see all of us get better at, including myself, are what we would call professional skills. And these are the jobs that it takes to do any job. Things like time management, things like task prioritization, or communicating, or presenting your results, or sticking to a budget, or planning a budget, right? I don't like the word soft skills because it makes it sound like they're less important, but they are typically called that. I've chosen to rebrand them as professional skills because I'm not soft, I'm a professional, and neither are you. So here's a list of some words that I would love to have people describe me as. How do I make sure they do? Here's a crazy thing for you, okay? I've been writing a blog since 2013. Every single job interview that I have had has asked me about my blog. I have never once shared that link in a job application. What's going on here is that in today's world, when you apply for a job, the first thing that happens if they're even remotely interested is they Google your name and they see what they find. And if they read your articles, great. If they don't and all they see are your headlines, look at the words that are suddenly subconsciously being branded into their psyche to associate with you. Your headlines, right? So I'm a big fan of writing with a good title, writing with a good picture, things that grab attention. And by the way, what this really is practicing talking. What platform do I use to blog? I have my own website at tonyferrar.com. It's a WordPress site, but I also highly recommend Medium if you're looking for a free option. If you'd like to set up a website with your own name as the URL, let me know. That could be one that we do in the future together, or even one-on-one, because I love doing that. Is it easy to write? It's harder at the beginning, and you get used to it. Okay. There's a great quote by a person named Dawson Trotman that says, "Thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through lips and fingertips." And I just think that's so beautiful. And so this is my next hack for you. I see a couple comments. I'll get back to them. I use common interview questions as prompts for my posts, but I don't mention it. Google the top 100 interview questions. There's your prompt. Name a time you worked on a team that was ineffective and what you did about it. Now, don't tell people that's what you're doing. Just write the answer. What's just happened is two things. First off, you're branding yourself as somebody who's explored their professional identity, and you've practiced answering that question. And if people don't resonate with what you've posted after you post it and share the link on LinkedIn in a few places, maybe your answer's crummy and it gives you a chance to rework it before you find yourself actually in an interview. I try to alternate between technical and professional posts. So half the time for me, technical looks like talking about what it looks like to teach effectively or learn effectively. For you, it might be solar panels or the latest animatronic on a Disney ride or the latest structural approach to putting up a bridge over a wide span, right? Whatever it is, pull an article, respond to it, right? And the second then are the professional ones. These are usually the ones you can answer as an interview prompt. Um, Comment about YouTube vlogs. I think vlogs, podcasts, all that stuff, really cool. The challenge to it is two things. One, the text isn't scannable. And so you show up in fewer keyword searches than you do when you write a post because there's just more words to find. And second, the challenge with things like vlogs and podcasts is that they take considerably more effort to produce well. I've got to make sure that I have quiet before I record my podcast so that my kids aren't in the background ruining my track. I've got to make sure that the lighting is right. I've got to make sure that I've done a good job editing. Where a podcast, where a blog post, I write it in the WordPress app, usually on my phone, sitting on the back patio while I have my coffee in the morning. And so for me anyway, it's easier. But if you're the type that can just be naturally present and form a one take video, knock yourself out. That's awesome, right? The challenge is consistency is more important than anything. And if you can't get yourself the time to do that once a week, you're probably going to find yourself falling off and it becomes more of a chore than a joy. And that's when things start to take a nosedive and this doesn't work. Okay. I'd rather see you write one paragraph a week than one vlog every 6 weeks. So hopefully you're hyped. Want to talk about the objection busting for just a moment here, and then we're done. My pleasure, K-Dog. I'm glad I was able to answer your question. Thank you for asking it, because I'm sure you weren't alone. First one, I don't want my social media to be seen by professional people, or I don't use social media, things like that. First off, I'd like to think most of us talk about privacy in terms of two bubbles, the private and the public. But in my mind, there's actually three. There's the public professional side that we let everybody see. There's the personal side that is public that we let everybody see. And then there are the private things that we keep to ourselves. Let me give you an example. I will tell you about what I do at work. That's professional. I will tell you about my favorite hobby and that I have kids and I love to rock climb and I probably do it 2 or 3 times a week and that I just bought my first house and I'm excited about the fact that I don't have a car payment. Those are all personal things. Private things, I'm not going to tell you if I had a medical procedure last week. That's where I draw the line. We all get to decide where that is. The value in your image comes when you share your professional and your personal while keeping your privacy away. Secondly, I'd like you to think for a minute about an old saying, which is fish where the fish are. And so at the end of the day, a lot of this isn't about your preference. It's about finding out where your potential employers hang out and being there. Hate to break it to you, they are on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. Don't have any experience, don't have anything to say? Fine, focus on the journey. Tell the story about a time that you had trouble learning something or the time that your team couldn't figure out the answer, right? Can't think of something to answer or talk about? Respond to other people's posts instead. My favorite one, I don't have the time for this. There's a study in 2018 by the Wall Street Journal that said 43% of recent graduates were considered underemployed. What that means is having a job that did not require your degree. I think it's probably valuable to find the job. I don't want you to be like half of the people who are about to get engineering degrees and not become engineers. So, my inspirational quote to close that out is maybe you could find out what happens if you just do 20 minutes a day. Because I guarantee you it changes lives. So, as I wrap up, I'd like to give you a 2 action-oriented steps to get started. I'm sure there's a way we can find to share these slides with you so that you can use things like my outline to help you as you sit down to work on this stuff, because clearly you can't write it all right now. But here we go. 2 action-oriented steps, then I promise I'm going to stop and we can answer questions and hang out as long as you want. First off, go create profiles. I recommend you do all of these. Snapchat might not be the one for professionalism, but maybe it is. If nothing else, it's a place that you can get comfortable sharing information and it goes away, so it's low pressure. Facebook, I created myself a Facebook page. Facebook page is the private version of my professional. I've got a private Facebook account, but I also use the page to do professional things. So if you go to facebook.com/the-Tony-Ferrar, you find what I want everyone to see instead of my private account. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and then Google Voice, I created a phone number and I use that phone number only for professional things. And that way I know if it rings and it's a strange number, maybe I should answer it anyway. Marion reached me on that today when normally I ignore all phone numbers that come into my normal phone that are not in my contacts. TikTok, do what you want, right? Remember, again, the goal here is fish where the fish are, and I'm not sure that your potential employers are looking there, but maybe they are, right? It really just depends on the scene you're in and whether you're the type that's going to produce things on there that push you forward there or not. I'd say at the least, kind of like a Toastmasters thing, anything that makes you more comfortable in producing content and sharing it is probably value added. Okay. Action number 2, launch a blog, publish something weekly. I don't care if it's a paragraph. Medium's great. It's free. If you want to hang out, we can figure out how to set up one with yourname.com. The cheapest deal that I've found on that so far is about $3 a month, but you got to prepay for 3 years, so it works out to be like $100, but then you don't have to touch it again until after you graduate. So see what you want to do there. But I've been really happy with my site since I set it up for myself, and it gives me the freedom to do lots of neat things that you can't do on a hosted site like Medium. But Medium's really awesome too, so you can try that. 2 closing thoughts, okay? So let me reach out. GitHub, that's a great place to build a portfolio, especially for people who do coding. If I were on GitHub posting my work, I would instantly be reposting links. I would write a blog post about the thing that I'd just done with a link to the code. Hey, I got excited the other day and I wrote a bubble sort algorithm in 3 lines. And here it is. And if you'd like to see why that's cool, you can click this and run these examples, right? When you do things like that, it makes it findable by more people, because you got to remember, you're never once going to be recruited by an engineer. You're going to be recruited by somebody who works in HR who tries to talk about engineering, but really they were handed keywords. And so you want to be constantly presenting your work in a way that a general audience can understand. So 2 closing thoughts. First one is, most resumes suck. Here's one little hack you can do to make sure that yours don't. Okay. The formula for every bullet on your resume is strong verb on noun with a result. For example, designed a part storage system, saving 35 minutes of hunting per day. Established relationships with new donors, increasing first-time giving by 12%. Mentored students in professional skills, leading to higher reported starting salaries. Every one of them starts with a strong verb: designed, established, mentored. You don't see words like helped, worked on. The second thing is a industry niche specific noun: part storage system, relationship, student, and then it ends with a result. Sometimes those can be quantifiable, such as 35 minutes of hunting per day. Other times it isn't quantifiable, and so you could say something a little more vague, like higher reported starting salaries. I did a thing. I took an action on a thing. It had a good result. These are what the bullets under each of my job titles, for example, look like on my resume. So take that and run with it if you like it. If you don't, leave it alone. Number 2, and more importantly, if you hear nothing else from me, I hope you hear this today. You're good enough. Every one of us deserves a job that we absolutely love, a job that we lose sleep over in a good way. Sometimes I'm up all night, not because I have to be, but because I'm so obsessed with doing a good job at this. And that's when I know something worked out, because most of the time I don't actually have to stay up all night to do a good job at it. So that's kind of cool too. Okay. You too are good enough. And I'm so excited to see what it is that you find for yourself. Right? There's a whole lot of money out there in this world right now that tells you you're not good enough. Buy our product and then maybe you're good enough. Wear this thing, put on this makeup, do this new exercise routine and fad diet and whatever else, and then you'll be good enough. Buy our thing and you'll be good enough. I say screw that. You're freaking awesome. Go do cool stuff. So if you want more support, I'd like you to know that these are all ways that I would love for you to reach me. We have a Discord server where we talk about time, money, and career all the time. My website, my phone number, which I would love to receive a text or a call from you on. LinkedIn, Facebook, all the other profiles are the Tony Ferrar. And with that, I'll leave this up so you can screenshot it in case you're after it immediately. But otherwise, I'll say thank you so much for your time. So appreciate you, Eric, there. And I'm here. As long as you want to talk and answer questions, I'll hang out. Cheers, everybody.
Wow. Tony. Oh my gosh. I can hear the standing ovation. Right, guys? You're unbelievable.
Thanks, folks.
Where have you been? Why weren't you here like 5 years ago when I started? Oh my gosh, I'll hire you. Can I hire you?
Yes, I'll work for you too.
Oh my gosh, you're fabulous. That was
Hayden, you rock. Thanks for that. I'll answer it.
So I want everybody to think of one takeaway today and write it in the chat. And I'm going to talk about what mine were while you're thinking about what your takeaway was. I had so many. It was crazy. I loved how you started with Booo Resumes. That was awesome, and I totally agree. Okay, so here's my first one. Flood the internet on what you want people to find regarding yourself. What do you want them to know about you? So flood the internet with that information. I thought that was great. Building a career should be a joy. Loved that. Thought that was fabulous. Search for people, not organizations. Killer. I'm definitely dropping soft skills and calling them professional skills. I'm going to just do that from now on. Thank you for that.
Right.
And I loved your quote, thoughts disentangle themselves when they pass through lips and fingertips. I wrote that down. Love that. There's so many things that you gave us today. Creating the profiles, launching the blog. I mean, unbelievably crammed, jam-packed with great. I mean, we could have spent half a day on all the stuff you put in there.
Wow.
So, I know. Ginger just said I've got 4 pages of notes. Me,
right on.
Yeah. So guys, let's just see what really resonated with them. Too many to list.
This is so cool. This is so cool.
Welcome, K-Dog, and we're going to have more, and we're going to have Dr. Ferrar back too. So now that we know who he is and what he's about, we're gonna make him a star, basically. College of Engineering. He already is one, but now we're really going to take it to the next level because now I know who he is now and what he's about. And this is why we're here, to find other people who love you, care about you, want to help you succeed, climb that ladder, and do it in an authentic way. And that's really what we're trying to do here. And he's phenomenal. You're just phenomenal.
Very kind of you. Thank you. I got a private question here. People are wondering if influencers on Instagram have real jobs. I would say nowadays that is a real job. I tried to become one, and it's not easy. That is a full-time job, producing content that gets enough clicks to make money at it. But I guess you could try it. Another question I asked somebody to ask me, and they did, so thanks. How I introduce myself. I have a 3-part system for introducing myself. Okay. I am, and then I say my name, from, my specialty is, and then something along the lines of, it's nice to see you. Okay. I am Tony Ferrar from the College of Engineering. My specialty is student success, and I'm thrilled to be here today. Let me break it down for you for just a second on why I do that. Okay. In almost every culture, including English, other languages, doesn't matter, we always tend to answer with my name is. I'm called, me llamo, je m'appelle, right? All these different versions of people putting identity onto me. They named me Tony, and now I'm stuck with it, right? Subtle shift that brings me confidence into a situation where I usually feel afraid, meeting a professional for the first time, walking in front of a room of 500 people or 50 on WebEx. When I say I am Tony Ferrar, I'm claiming my identity. And in the background, the thing that you're not hearing, you'll never notice, is that I'm saying in my head, and I'm about to show you what the flip that means. And so it's my little hype, right? It's like President Obama. I don't know if you ever noticed, but he kind of had this like swagger every time he got on the stage. I think that was the same thing, right? This is, I own this space. I am Tony Ferrar. When I say where I'm from, I always zoom out one layer, right? If I say College of Engineering, that's because you already know I'm from UNLV. But I'm not going to tell you what department I work for because I want to make it easy for you to ask me a follow-up question. If I were at a career fair, I'd say I'm from UNLV, but I wouldn't even say I was at the College of Engineering, because I want it to be that easy for somebody to ask me a question to follow up. My specialty is student success. If I were in a room full of academic nerds, I might say that my specialty is contemporary pedagogy. The point is, I always, again, zoom out one layer, say something that's just slightly different, right? I'm an engineering professor whose specialty is student success, not thermal regulated propulsion systems, right? And what happens when I say that is I've just given people 2 easy ways to follow up. Oh, really? Tell me more. What department are you in? Oh, really? Tell me more. What is it that you do as you work on student success? And you have just reduced the friction to having a conversation. And then, of course, I always like to let people know that I'm happy that I'm there. So that's how I introduce myself. I am from, my specialty is, nice to see you.
Wonderful.
So
Any
thanks for
other?
that one.
So Serena's saying, any tips for introverts?
Yeah, own it. It's not something to be fixed. It is not something to be fixed. It can be scary and put you in a position of feeling like you have, what's what I'm looking for, like an anxiety, right? To be in a situation where you're expected to be extroverted, but that's okay. Many introverts are better at producing things like their blog content or comments on somebody else's post. I'm noticing lately, by the way, in my remote teaching, that a bunch of students who I'm sure would never have raised their hands in front of 65 people are more than happy to send me a DM on WebEx or whatever lecture app we're using at the moment. There's an opportunity to connect on your terms now that we might not have had before, if the only way for you to land a job was to show up in a room full of people in suits and booths and walk up and shake hands and say something memorable, right? We're past that. And so I would say own it, be you, and find somewhere that connects on it.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I was wondering how you feel about being distracted and managing notifications with your social media.
Yeah, I get really frustrated by distractions. I do not multitask well. I frequently find myself being, hey, come back to me. Like that's a thing for me. When I'm in a conversation, even sometimes, like if somebody walks by in the background, I'm like, what the heck are they doing? You know? And so for me, I have all notifications turned off until I go to that place to see what somebody had to say to me.
Okay, so it's more of
So
a habit of checking on
yeah,
your terms.
yeah. So check this out. Right now, I have over 200 unread email from my UNLV email account because I don't like to respond to every single email I get. That's another one of my little peeves, by the way. What gives you the right to just toss things into my life and make me respond to them all the time, right? But if you look at the app badge on my Gmail account on my app here, there's 0. Right? The only way I know I have unread mail is if I open that app because I'm looking to communicate. Like, I don't want to be interrupted just because my phone buzzed. So yeah, I don't honestly feel like timeliness is as important with this kind of networking and relationship building. If you were trying to be an influencer, you might need to like have live type responsiveness, right? But if you post a tweet and the next day you open it up and see who responded and respond to them, that's fine. Not every conversation has to move at the speed of instant, and that's part of the joy of this as well. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. Thoughts on cancel culture? I'd love to know a little bit more about what you want to hear from me specifically on that one before I delve in, because that could go a lot of directions. But if you want to elaborate, I'll definitely talk about it. How do you deal with people who make inappropriate comments toward you publicly on the internet? I don't think I've done something impactful until it's pissed somebody off. Right? If somebody in some HR office isn't ticked off at me for saying, thanks, Santiago, if someone isn't ticked off at me for saying that resumes suck and they don't measure people's abilities and that the algorithm that's used by Glassdoor to match people to jobs is faulty, if somebody's not ticked off by that, then I'm not doing my job, right? Because I'm trying very hard to dismantle their entire approach, right? So I'm okay with it. Sometimes it can be hard, right? Have you ever noticed somebody that, like, you get 15 positive reviews and one negative one, and the only one you hear is the negative one? My pleasure, Hayden. Thank you. That one negative comment is the one we think about. And so a lot of times what I've come to realize is that it's okay to not be for everyone, right? If you didn't catch it, I'm trying to find the people that are the same kind of crazy as me, because that's who I want to spend my day with, right? Ben's got their hand up. What's up, Ben?
Quick question
yeah.
about the cancel culture. So if I'm starting a vlog or whatever, or even starting to post more on all social media platforms, and obviously there's a lot of trolls out there, and there's a lot of people who try to misconstrue your words and say, just take little clips and snippets of your content and try to flip that as bias, or just weaponize it to basically get you canceled. Is that what are your thoughts on that, and how do you kind of like combat that?
Honestly, I probably would know I made it if somebody tried it that hard, right? Same kind of story. In all seriousness, there are 3 topics that I recommend staying away from anytime you're having a conversation with somebody new, and every blog post you make is a conversation with somebody new. Every post you make on the internet is a conversation potentially with somebody new. 3 things I stay away from, but you can say them with me: sex, politics, religion. Right? I don't go there.
Yeah.
That can be complex at times, because there are definitely a number of marginalized groups that have been prominently displayed on social media lately.
And now politics too.
And I stand with these people, and I support, and I am taking the actions that I am able to take to genuinely support. I have changed the way I teach in response to Black Lives Matter, but I am not spraying about it on the web, right? There's just some things I stay away from.
Does that include politics too as well?
For me, yeah, just because I don't know what my boss thinks. And the last thing I want to do is get passed over for a promotion because of something that I think that, relatively speaking, doesn't have an impact on my day-to-day job, right?
Gotcha. Thank you.
Instead what I try to do is stick to the conversations that I would like to have in a professional setting. And if that doesn't resonate, it's okay, because this isn't for everyone. It's for someone. And when that someone shows up, it's natural and it clicks. And when someone who doesn't fit that shows up, it isn't, right? I'm sure you have classmates who would have had no fun during my presentation right now. Sounds like you had a good time, so maybe we're somewhat simpatico here, and that's pretty awesome.
Gotcha.
But you're on a mission to find the others, right? Not find everyone. We don't have to be mass market anymore.
Gotcha. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Great questions, everybody.
Yeah.
I'm just going to do a little bit of closing up the hour with letting you know that our next workshop is a week from today, September 23rd. It's how to be successful the first 90 days on the job. If you should be seeing some e-blasts about that. You can also go to our Engineering Career Services website, www.unlv.edu/engineering/jobs, and look at the bottom of the page for upcoming engineering career events. Everything's going to be listed there. So that's September 23rd, and that's being presented by GCW. So civils, you'll be familiar with that organization. They hire a ton of our CEEs, which we're very grateful for. There's also a 4-day virtual career event that the main UNLV Career Services Group is hosting. We can't do an in-person career event, unfortunately, this semester, but there is a 4-day virtual one. Tuesday, October 13th is STEM Day. So if you have not registered, please activate your Handshake account, and you'll begin to see information about STEM Day on Tuesday, October 13th. It's 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. There's 2 things you have to do. You have to register for the event, and you have to build and select your sessions. If you don't select sessions for the event, you'll literally have nothing to do when you're in the event. So again, register for the event and select specific sessions being hosted by employers or panel discussions, whatever you want to get involved in. Just be sure you build out a schedule for yourself with those sessions. So again, that's Tuesday, October 13th. With that, I want to thank Dr. Ferrar once again for just a phenomenal, wonderful presentation. So glad we had him kick us off this fall. Next one next Wednesday. Be looking for the e-blasts. We're on Instagram, we're on Facebook. We're going to get better too at building our personal brand as a department. We got to get better at that. So thank you, Dr. Ferrar. Thanks everybody for joining us today. We really, really are glad you had the time to do it. Please provide some feedback. Send me an email. Let me know, if you have ideas, thoughts on future workshops that you'd like to see. Dr. Ferrar is going to do some more stuff for us, we hope, this fall and definitely next spring. If we can get back to in-person stuff, we'll do some panel discussions. We've got all kinds of ideas. We're just a little bit constricted right now because of the virus. But hey, we're not stopping. We're moving forward, and we're still bringing these ideas and thought leaders to you. So with that, have a great evening. Be safe, and hopefully we'll see you next week.
Thanks again, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Wow, what a fun time.